My experience with being a Black American and interacting with other people of the diaspora has been really interesting, because living in Detroit and Chicago, everyone's kind of the same. Everyone's like a different color, kind of different shades, but no one's like, oh, they're not Black, everyone's Black. When you're a Black American, other Black people are Black to you. Or at least that's how a lot of people think of it and how I think of it. So then when I came to New York, a lot of people are like, oh, what are you? I'd be like, I'm Black. They'd be like, oh no, like what type of Black? And I'd be like, American? And they'd be like, oh. Once this boy, he said, oh yeah, you're Black. I was like, Black? I'd never heard that. They're like, oh yeah, that's what me and my friends call like Americans who don't know where they're from. Like it was very dismissive and just kind of normal for him. And I was like, oh. I don't think of myself as not knowing where I came from, but very obviously people think that I do. They want you to be different than them. They don't want to be what you are. They don't want to be considered just Black. Like that's beneath them. They're like, no, I'm not Black. Like I'm not just Black. I know where I'm from, which is a gift. That's a good thing. That's great. I'm glad people know where they're from. But to act like that's a choice that I made to just forget where I was from, like that's not what happened. And then you see people with that wheel turn, once you tell them you're Black American, you kind of see all the like stereotypes and assumptions that even white people have about Black Americans coming up. I've heard people say like, oh, like that must be so hard, like you don't have any culture. What? I've never thought of myself as not having culture. The difference between being Jamaican or being like Dominican or Brazilian or things like that, where slaves were brought in and they, like the similar things were happening around the same time. I think the difference is Black American culture is so commodified that now it's become a norm. So people don't think of it as a culture. So all the music that people, you go to everyday people, you see all those people there dancing to a lot of music that like is Black American music, but then that in the same breath, some people will be like, oh, Black Americans are so stupid. Or they'll be like, wow, they'll hear someone on the train speaking and they'll be like, they sound so ignorant, they sound so ratchet, they sound so ghetto. You can't have parts of a culture and enjoy parts of a culture while at the same time dismissing it and building yourself up. I think that's kind of a defense mechanism, and I think that's one thing that happens a lot within the diaspora is using these defense mechanisms, because when you have the looming kind of white history, this white power aspect that is the commonality between all of us, you're trying to, defense mechanisms are used to try to make yourself feel better, trying to prove that you are a thing, trying to make this case for yourself. I think it's extremely hard for Black Americans ourselves to kind of be like, what is our culture? Because language to me is a very big part of culture, and slang especially, like how you have like pidgin amongst other people, how you have just anything, dialect, different terms, all this stuff, because America as a country has like exported its pop culture and become this kind of standard for pop culture and just everything. Now everyone kind of has this in to like the way we talk, the music we listen to, the way we dress, all this stuff. So then when everyone can do it, you kind of start asking yourself like, well, what else is it? Which is why I think Black Americans are always kind of on this forefront of creativity, because you have to keep reinventing things, because you know the minute it's invented, someone's gonna take it. And then once one person takes it, everyone gets it. I think because of that, there isn't a lack of Black American culture, but it's constantly turning over. It has a very high turnover rate, and it's very expansive. I think that the hyper-visibility of being a African American or Black American is definitely, it could be a privilege. It could be, and I've never actually sat and thought about it much, but I think it'd be irresponsible to say that it wasn't. There are good things that come from visibility. There are. Or maybe if you are a Black person from Sweden or a Black, like Welsh or something, you don't have any representation. Representation is a big thing. Black Americans are doing a good job at working forward to try to represent themselves. It's not 100%, it's not even like a 50% yet. It's not halfway charged, but it's more than some communities and some people have. And I do think it's important to recognize that and to understand that. I think it's coming to that understanding and recognizing the privilege you do have, or recognizing the opportunities that you have because of something, but also having the same capability of being able to look and be like, okay, that's a thing, but this is still looming over everyone. This is still the black cloud over everyone's head. Reparations, I think about a lot, and I read a few articles about it, and I do feel like reparations are necessary. When you look historically about like the Holocaust, people got reparations for that. You even have, if you fought in that war, some people got reparations just for fighting and having to deal with the fact that they fought in World War II and it was like trying. So to have this community of people that got absolutely nothing is strange. When you have a suffering that is that big and spans through so many people and if still is affecting a culture today and affecting people, you can't just be like, here's nothing. Just kind of sit back and be like, well, you know, that happened so long ago. You don't need anything. Like, you're cool now, right? It's very irresponsible and it's very interesting. Even if they were not to happen in my lifetime, I would love to see them being discussed politically as a thing that is a possibility. And even that conversation is what is important. You can't just be like, here's nothing. Being biracial, I think, has made my black experience different in very nuanced ways, because there's a privilege that comes with being biracial. And there's kind of this, growing up, I've always been told that like, oh, you're mixed. Like, it was a good thing. It was like a good thing to be. People envied that from me, which for a while, and I'll be honest, for a while, especially when I was like younger, middle school, early high school, like you think that's a good thing to be. You carry that and you're like, oh, well, I'm mixed. I'm this mixed person. But I think the one thing that has really, that I needed to learn and that really came together for me and solidified my place for myself in black culture is realizing that privilege and breaking away from it. I think that's something all biracial people need to do, is realize that there's a privilege there and then try to come from that and understand your place and where you can work. But I don't think that lessens your blackness in any sort of way. I don't get offended when people make, like, there's this whole thing on the internet where it's like mixed jokes. And they're like, oh, I got light skin eyes, I've got that good hair, I've got all this. And it's like, these are true things that are affecting people and people feel some type of way about and are upset about. So I make a very conscious decision that I don't go around people. It's like when a white person's like, my hair is so messy and nappy today. If I say something like that, it's almost the same kind of thing. If I'm like, my hair's so nappy today, it's so this. I'm doing the same thing that white person is doing. And I think it's important to, as a biracial person, to understand that and to be like, this is why people are doing it and not get offended. Understand your place and where you can work. I think minimalism, especially contemporary minimalism, just kind of focuses on a visual lack. Like not seeing a lot of things, using maybe one color, omitting things, where I think that's been happening a lot in black American culture for a long time. And one of the examples I use is like really kind of, a lot of people don't think about it, but Soulja Boy. All his beats are like one thing happening the whole time. That is minimalism. How certain people dress. I think with people see black when they think, oh, they're gonna be wearing tons of busy things. They're gonna be wearing tons of color all the time. They're going to be loud. They're going to be doing this. So I think the idea of minimalism, which is like quiet, reserved, or at least kind of simple, is an idea a lot of people connect with black people or black culture or black art, where I don't think that's true. I've had people tell me, for sure, they're like, oh, I don't really like black art or African art. They're like, it's really colorful and it's really like vibrant, and I want something a bit more toned down. Like, people don't tone things down. I've seen tons of people who are doing art that isn't your traditional kind of black art, or what they make you think of, where it's like prints and colors, or not that that's bad, but I just think it's something that is attributed to a white gaze, and it's a white idea, and they're looking at it through also a very kind of simple lens, where you're not attributed to things like rap. You're not thinking about things like how people are dressing. You're thinking more so about, oh, they painted a picture of like raw colors, and they're thinking about, here's a drawing of just a piece of green paint on something, like that's so revolutionary. Where I think taking things like Young Thug's beats, Soulja Boy's beats, were like The Pack, where it was literally just a repetition. Repetition is minimalism. The American education system is bizarre to me and extremely flawed. When I was in high school, senior in high school, I moved from a school that was predominantly black to a school that was predominantly white. It was a really bizarre culture shock, but also at the same time, the things that we were learning and just how we were learning it was so vastly different that it blew my mind. At my one school, the first one, I remember whenever we would have to go get our textbooks, at one point they would run out. They just run out of textbooks, and they'd be like, oh, we'll go to your class when school starts and you'll just share with someone, and that was just normal. It wasn't weird. I would have, me and my friends would share books between each other. And then I go to this other school and I go get the books, and they're like, yeah, we just got in the new edition of this book. And I was like, new edition of a book that I can have myself? That was bizarre. And it was such a big school, and one thing that's really stood out to me was the class selection that these schools offered. I didn't have anything like philosophy that I could have taken at the original high school, my predominantly black high school. I didn't have these classes, but then when I went to the white school, there was a class you could take called the History of Baseball. But this school did not offer an African American history class. They had a class you could take for history credit called the History of Baseball, but they didn't have African American history, which blew my mind. So even those small cosmetic differences, the schools were better, you had better lockers, you had way more options of lunch. And these schools are maybe only 30 minutes away from each other, but it was completely different. While there were the cosmetic difference between my black school and my white school, there was also definitely a bigger lapse in care about the students. We used to have police come in and do random raids on people's lockers and stuff. If someone got suspended or someone got in a fight, you were gone, and they had this other school you could go to, this completely other school where the bad kids went. They also had a completely different uniform than what we had. We've already differentiated you because you're bad, but now we're gonna put you in a uniform. We're gonna have you all go to one school, and they would get dropped off at our school and bused to that other school. That sounds exactly like prison. That sounds exactly like jail. That sounds exactly like juvie without it being juvie. It's just school. So I think when you're already shipping kids off somewhere because you don't want to deal with them, you're kind of just dismissing them to the system already. You've told them oh, if you're different, or if you're bad, or if you make one mistake, you're gonna get shipped off. And I think that happens at a lot of schools, and it reinforces this idea, especially within black communities, either you get out or you get stuck. Where the white school, it wasn't like that. If you did something bad, you got therapeutic detention, where they would talk to you why did you do that? Why did you feel the need? Let's talk it out. Where they didn't want to talk anything out at the other school. They're just you both got in a fight, bye. You've been in 3 fights, you're done. When you have a suffering that is that big and it still is affecting a culture today and affecting people, you can't just be here's nothing. You can't have parts of a culture and enjoy parts of a culture while at the same time dismissing it. There are good things that come from visibility. There are. It's more than some communities and some people have.